The situation is that I, 33, been with my fiancée, 29, for 2 years. I proposed to her recently and we wanted to have an engagement party at a restaurant and have a small gathering. She was previously engaged to someone who died and it was clearly devastating given she'd cry from time to time. I remember when she moved in with me and she brought a box of his stuff. She had plenty of it since his family wasn't in the picture. Next thing I knew my apartment turned into their old place kind of. With vases, books, rugs. I didn't say anything because she said she wanted to feel comforting living at my apartment and she was away from family and friends, so I kind of understood how she was feeling. My mom stopped by to tell us about the engagement dinner and we seemed to be on the same page, but turned out there were other issues. 2 weeks ago was my birthday. My fiancée gifted me a tie that she wanted me to wear on our engagement dinner. The issue is that the tie was her former fiancé's. So I was pretty confused. I felt so upset that not only she gifted me something that belonged to him on my birthday, but wanted me to wear it in front of family and friends that day. She said she bought it for him and it holds a special meaning to her and wanted me to have it. I said no. I returned it to her and told her this should be put back in its place. She started questioning whether it was the color or fabric. I told her no. It's not like she bought me a new tie that I didn't like the color or fabric. That's ridiculous. I would have clearly thanked her for her nice gesture, but this used to be her former fiancé's tie, so I couldn't accept it, much less wear it during our engagement dinner. She started arguing with me about how inconsiderate and negative I was being. It went on for days. I finally snapped and told her we will not be having an engagement dinner and that I'd call my family and friends and apologize. She started crying and saying that I'm being selfish even though I'm the one paying for everything. She was so upset that refused to even talk to me and I've been getting the silent treatment. I've been told by my older brother that I was overreacting and that no one will notice where the tie came from and that I should let it go. It's a small irrelevant issue that I was making a big deal of. Sounds like she needs to go to a grief counselor. She has to be able to separate her past relationship with this current one. She can compartmentalize. Nobody is saying she has to let go of her memories, but she can't be trying to recreate a past segment of her life into this one, as if you're the replacement instead of a whole new person in her life. Also, maybe couples therapy too. Not the idiot for putting things on hold until you both can come to terms about how to deal with this. She can still have feelings and memories of her late fiancé, but she has to come to terms with the present as well. Gifting something that was purchased for someone else in a relationship is a big no-no, regardless of the circumstances, and you are in a very peculiar situation to say the least. She is clearly not over him and is using you as some sort of surrogate. I'm not saying she is doing it on purpose, but it sure isn't healthy. I'm not saying she will never get over it, but you shouldn't marry someone with that level of emotional instability, maybe in a few years. She doesn't want to marry you. She wants to turn you into him so she can marry him. You are not wrong for refusing to serve as the scaffolding upon which she sews together the reanimation of her deceased beloved. Frankly, you need to ask for the ring back and move her out until she's ready to be with someone new. That will almost certainly involve a therapist. My 27 husband, A, 29, is kind, funny and handsome, so he's always been quite popular. We usually hang out with the same 10-15 people he's close with. But 6 years ago, he met a guy his age, B, at a work conference with various companies. Said guy was extremely smart, cute, a bit more reserved, but still just as lovable. They immediately hit it off and after a year, even started calling themselves soulmates. Soon enough it was a given in our group that my husband and his newfound best friend wouldn't usually do an activity without each other. B would often stop by our place as well, and our kids, 6, 4, and I enjoyed his visits because he was such a sweetheart. Unfortunately, just 3 years ago B died in a serious accident because of a drunk driver. Our family was obviously crushed by the news. I gave my husband the space he needed and offered him all the help and support I could give, but I started to worry after the first year. Then, I got frustrated after the second year. Now, it's the third year, and I'm going crazy because it just doesn't seem normal to me. He's always been a doting father, but he hasn't played with our kids more than once during those 3 years. I often see him spacing out and looking or holding things that belong to B. He wakes up in the middle of the night and leaves the bedroom to cry. I feel like he doesn't see me or more importantly, our kids, anymore, like everything stopped mattering. And while he keeps working the same hours, I've been told by one of his closest friends, who works at the company, that the quality of his work constantly deteriorates. I assumed that maybe the issue runs deeper than I'd thought and asked him if he'd be ready to go to therapy, but nada. Soon after we had dinner, while the kids were at his sister's, she lives next door, and he gave me attention, which I appreciated, but while we were kissing he broke down and shut himself in our bedroom while constantly apologizing. The day after I sat him down and asked him seriously if it's possible that he's had romantic feelings for B. He went off on me, said I was out of line, that I'm ridiculous for being jealous of his best friend who's forever gone, that I should know he's straight, and that he's disappointed in me. I feel like I deserve to express my concerns after such a long time, but a lot of our friends, who know how sensible the situation is and how devastated my husband is, think I should have never said something that intrusive and speculative. They've called me an idiot for doing this to him. So, am I the idiot for saying such a thing to my husband considering all that's happened? No idiots here. Your friends don't know what you know. Whether your husband was in love with his friend or not, it's a problem that everything stopped mattering when he died and that he can no longer show affection to his children or his wife. Therapy is really a must at this point, and I think if he won't go you should go yourself and get some advice about how to approach this serious crisis. 3 years. His children are much more important than a best friend, mind you. I love my best friend, I don't know what I would do without her, but I sure as hell would not ignore my family for 3 years if she passed. I understand everyone is different, but that is way too long and seems deeper. To be honest, you need to tell him to either go to therapy or do something, because his children need him and so do you. There is an actual disorder, I think it's called prolonged grief disorder or complex bereavement syndrome. My half-sister fell apart for a long time after a close friend died, and her behavior was a lot like you describe your husband's grieving. Somehow the loss was always fresh and new and she was just wrecked, including discontinuing IVF and losing her job because her productivity was so low. Somehow her fiancé got her into therapy after nearly 5 years, and it has really helped. My 8-year-old son has muscular dystrophy. He was diagnosed at 5 years of age. My ex-wife and I noticed something was seriously wrong when he struggled with a delay in walking, difficulty rising from his seat, bending and picking up stuff. The news was absolutely devastating. My ex-wife couldn't accept how everything we had planned for our son's future came crashing down. She thought I had more courage to deal with his illness, so she left, probably wanting to forget about us and start over. I got married to my wife a year ago. My stepdaughter is a very loud and picky kid. She's 12. She had laid her eyes on my son's room and wanted to take it. We've talked about it, since she seems to be hating me and holding a grudge for this very reason. I told her no, her room is upstairs. It's smaller, but I needed the bigger room to provide my son with space to move freely. Last week, she brought it up again and said she wanted to switch rooms because her friend said it was not cool and girly and she wanted space to put her girly stuff. I explained that my son doesn't have the ability to go up and down stairs with a wheelchair. My wife said that I should get one of those electric climbing wheelchairs. I told her yes, I might be considering this in the future, but I wasn't going to burden my son with the trouble of climbing up and down stairs before I get him a better wheelchair once I've saved up for it. My stepdaughter started crying. My wife sided with her and lashed out after I refused, saying her daughter's mental health matters and that I was being unfair with treating kids differently. I lost it. I started yelling at them both and telling them they were selfish for asking me this. My wife yelled back and said she wanted to take her daughter and go stay with her folks till I make this right and be fair to them. Not the idiot. Your stepdaughter is a child and will hopefully grow up to realize how much of an idiot she's being. Your wife is a full-grown adult and should know better. If she can't recognize why your son's needs far outweigh her daughter's need for a bigger room, then consider throwing away the whole wife. Please continue to stick up for your son. That being said, if your stepdaughter's complaint is that her room isn't cool and girly, could you let her pick out a new wall color, decor, or something that will give her a room she is more excited about? If it's a space issue, maybe some pretty, girly shelving. She's old enough to be able to look online, find some inspiration, and within a budget make her own design experiences. It could also be a great bonding experience for you both. It's time for your second divorce. Pediatric wheelchairs are so expensive, even more so if you get him an electric one. And once he gets big enough for an adult-sized one. This needs to be soon. An ex-wife lady needs to just move in with her parents. I worked with special needs people, adults and kids, and if she can't grasp that his MS is a disability and a very physical one, then change your locks while she's gone. If she stays, then she can carry your son up and down stairs when he's fully grown without any muscle, able to move on his own. She and her spawn are disgusting people. I, 36, was best friends with Georgia, 36, since we were 5. Even from an early age, Georgia competed with me on inconsequential things. The level of our friendship varied throughout the years of college and slightly after, but we became best friends again in our mid to late 20s. Georgia and I got engaged around the same time. Once I announced, she set her wedding date 2 weeks before mine and picked the same vendors I had, then wore a white dress to my wedding, just to give you an idea. Whatever. We both started TTC at the same time. She got pregnant on her first try and stopped talking to me because it would have been too awkward. I was going through extensive infertility treatments that didn't result in a child that she never asked about. My husband had a psychotic break, and my once loving marriage spiraled into horrible physical, emotional, and financial abuse. I reached out to her for help, and she said she was too busy with her baby. She never contacted me again, and I didn't reach out either. I was fine with the outcome, learned to never keep a friendship like that again, got out of my marriage, and went on to find a wonderful man who is now my husband. My husband and I also had to go through fertility treatments, and we are cautiously optimistic with our chances for bringing home a baby, as I'm now 8 weeks pregnant through IVF. We haven't told most people, but I happened to run into an old family friend, Judy, in my hometown and ended up sharing the news. I also shared we were having a girl, which we know because of genetic testing. Apparently the small town gossip still runs deep, because the next day I got a scathing email from Georgia about how she heard from Judy that I was having a girl and demanding to know why I was rubbing it in her face, because I know she had 2 boys now and her 3rd pregnancy is also a boy, and they've been waiting for their girl and she's in therapy because she hasn't gotten one yet. She went on to accuse me of always trying to one-up her. I wasn't going to write back, but decided to try to be the bigger person and just said, "I'm so sorry that the news you heard from Judy was difficult for you to hear. I was simply sharing news of my life and had no idea you were struggling with gender." Note: I know it's sex, not gender, but she used gender and I didn't want to correct her. Disappointment. I was so pleased to hear from your email that you've gotten the large family you always hoped for, and I hope you and husband can make peace with the beautiful family you created. My email was then shared to all our former mutual friends, and several emailed me to tell me what Georgia had done and that they stood up for me and are so happy for me, but one friend and Georgia's mom emailed ripping me a new one about how callous I am. I'm used to being gaslit from my ex-husband and am now questioning if I somehow am the idiot for casually sharing our news and not thinking about any potential repercussions. Not the idiot. She sounds horrible. Couldn't face speaking to you when she fell pregnant, wants nothing to do with your difficulties, then even when you don't tell her, you're rubbing your news in her face. This last is amazing. It's all about her and her wants, and somehow you're in the firing line for getting pregnant. She sounds massively toxic, presumably her mother is similar. I suggest you don't reply to any more communication now you can see it. Don't let it detract from your wonderful news, and congratulations to you. You are not beholden to her struggles, and for her to try and project that onto you is beyond insane. It seems like you never knew she was trying to have a girl. How she got the notion that you were trying to one-up her by having one is beyond me. It's not like she can control what gender of child she has, and the same goes for you. She seems a little nuts, and I'd keep my distance if I were in your position. You made the right call in cutting this woman out of your life years ago. Block her mother, block anybody attacking you for being a normal human being. Stress is real and has very real physical manifestations. Do not let this horrible toxic woman ruin this amazing wonderful thing for you. You're going to be a mother, and that's fantastic. Embrace it. Don't waste your energy, mental, emotional and physical, trying to deal with this whack job of a person who just wants to tear you down. You're worth so much more than that. I, 43, lost my wife to a horrific auto accident. I have an 11-year-old son who was with his mom when the accident happened and resulted in him losing a limb. It was absolutely devastating. My son never accepted that this is how his life will be. Despite therapy, he still had too many emotions that he couldn't let go of. Phantom pain made it worse. It's been over 2 years. He's been using the wheelchair, but he still can't enjoy doing activities the way he wants. Plus, this has affected his social life. He receives education at home and rarely engages in conversations with other kids. I'm currently saving to buy a house with my fiancée. She's not staying with us and wants to move in together after I buy a house. I've been saving for 3 months while trying to keep everything balanced. My fiancé and my son have a good relationship. He loves when she visits and spend time with her. I felt happy that my son was able to open up and be happy around her. Last week, my son was watching some videos of kids playing, running, doing activities, and they all had a prosthesis. He was impressed that they were able to do cool stuff and enjoy their time like that. He knows how it was difficult for them in the beginning and was impressed of how far they got. He started becoming interested and told me he wanted to have a prosthetic leg and learn new skills and said he felt paralyzed in his wheelchair. I started looking into it, and I had met with the medical team and I've been told about the process, talked to people who had been through this, and decided to get a prosthetic leg that cost $16,000. I spoke with my fiancé about taking some of my savings to pay for the prosthetic leg, and her initial thought was that I should wait till after the wedding and after we get a home, then she might even help with saving. But I just started saving and have about 20,000, so that'd be waiting for more than a year. She insisted and thought of it as the logical thing to do, said my son waited for 2 years, won't hurt to wait a little more. Then she got mad after I told her she didn't help with money and brought up that she pays for other stuff. She refused to discuss it and lashed out at me saying I shouldn't disregard her feelings like that. She's still upset and is trying to convince my son to wait, and he was clearly hurt and started losing interest. Am I the idiot, as she says? Not the idiot. Your fiancé wants your son to wait years in a wheelchair so that she can have her dream wedding and move into a house that you're paying for. And she went so far as to try to persuade your son that he could wait. Don't marry this woman. She's torpedoed any possibility of a good relationship with your son by insisting that her selfishness is more important than his health and happiness, and there's no reason to think that her egotism will suddenly vanish once she's got what she wants. Your son should be your first priority, and you're right, this is money you already had saved. Your son has finally found a way to be happy and get over what happened. Isn't his happiness priceless? Your fiancé sounds like a selfish person to choose having a big house and wedding over helping your son live a full and happy life. It's not her money yet, but if you are going to marry this woman, you need to make sure she isn't just going to forget that she will be a stepmom. You will be a family and keeping everyone happy, not just herself. Your fiancé is accusing you of disregarding her feelings while she totally disregards your son's feelings. It sounds like she is only really thinking of herself. Get your son the prosthetic. The sooner he can start to feel more capable and better about himself, the better. He is the important one here, and it is unreasonable for your fiancé to use this sort of emotional blackmail on you. Another year at his age is a huge chunk of time.